Episode 73. What are you waiting for? After Jade took a bath, she was afraid that Dario might have already returned, so she carefully put on a towel and left the bathroom. Fortunately, Dario wasn't back yet, so she felt relieved. She quickly got into bed and thought about how she should spend the money she earned that day. She wanted to use some of it to buy something for her grandma. She also wanted to buy something for Dario. But it seemed like there was nothing that he needed, and he definitely didn't care about the cheap stuff he bought. She felt distressed. Jade searched online for a long time before she realized it was already 12 o'clock. Only then did she suddenly notice that Dario had not returned. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and was about to go to sleep, but then she felt that something was wrong. Dario was not back yet. Could something have happened? Or did he faint after taking a bath for too long? Thinking about these possibilities, Jade suddenly became anxious. Afraid that something might have happened to him, she immediately pulled off the blanket and ran to look for him. But in the guest room, there was no sign of Dario. She looked around anxiously and finally heard the sound of a keyboard tapping in the study room. She quietly went in to take a look and found that he was concentrating on his laptop with a serious face. She heaved a big sigh of relief. Jade was afraid of disturbing him, so she knocked on the door quietly. "Is something the matter?" Dario asked without looking up. His eyes were focused on the laptop screen. "Dario, it's already midnight. Are you still working?" Jade lowered her head guiltily. It was all because of her. If she hadn't wasted his time cooking, he wouldn't have been awake so late. Dario put down the mouse in his hand, and the corners of his mouth curled up. She actually cared about him. He didn't expect that she hadn't gone to sleep yet. He thought that she would have gone to sleep when she returned to her room. He turned his head and suddenly saw the pajamas she was wearing. Immediately he felt his gaze tighten and his throat become somewhat dry. She didn't know her own limits. She actually dressed that way in the middle of the night to look for him? Did she really not treat him as a man? Did she really think that his willpower was that strong? The black dress wrapped tightly around her tall and straight chest, and its irregular design made her thighs faintly discernible. The most important thing was that the cloth was still translucent. In other words, her pink underwear and her snow-white chest were slightly visible beneath her dress. Dario swallowed his wet mouth, and his gaze stopped at her chest. He couldn't help but curse. Damn it! There were so many pajamas. Why did she choose these ones? This dress even made her chest visible. If Jade was standing naked in front of him at that moment, his reaction wouldn't have been so intense. As it was, her translucent dress was even more stimulating to his eyes, especially while she was standing at the door, very carefully and shyly. Seeing her like that, Dario felt a burst of heat in his lower abdomen. A part of his body was also lifted uncontrollably. Dario quickly looked away and returned his gaze to the screen. He asked in a low and hoarse voice, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" Jade scratched her head and said in embarrassment, I saw that you still hadn't come to sleep, and I was afraid that something had happened to you. I was waiting for you." Dario felt that her 3 last words were especially meaningful in such a situation. He couldn't help but fantasize, given how she was dressed. He squinted his dark eyes and quickly typed one word on the screen. Finished. Then he quickly turned off the computer. In less than 2 seconds, he walked to the door and gently pressed her against the wall. With his hot eyes, he locked her eyes that were moist from being sleepy. "Are you waiting for me to sleep with you?" Dario's voice was especially deep and ambiguous. Jade originally felt that there was nothing wrong with what he said, so she nodded. But then she felt that something was wrong. She found that his eyes were even hotter than before. Her face turned red and she immediately waved her hand excitedly and explained, No, I didn't mean that. What I said was to go to sleep. Don't think about it the wrong way." "Do you really want me to think the wrong way?" "Of course not." Jade stared at him with her beautiful apricot eyes that were wide open. There was even a trace of anger in her eyes. It seemed that the next time she talked to him, she would have to think twice. She had to be careful not to say things without thinking, otherwise he would misunderstand her. "I have something to say to you." Jade looked at him with embarrassment. But before she could say anything, Dario interrupted her and said, "Do you want to do exercises in bed with me?" "What exercises? Can't you be purer in your thoughts?" Jade stared at him angrily. Before, she wanted to repay him well, but now she didn't want to repay him at all. "I'm sorry, Jade. It's just the way you're dressed. Even a gentleman would turn into a beast," Dario said in a serious tone. His tone was low and hoarse. "You are the one who bought all the clothes I'm wearing." Jade lowered her head and found that the clothes were translucent. Why didn't she see clearly before? Oh my god, this is too much. While she was embarrassed, Dario slowly bent down and wanted to kiss her charming lips, but he was dodged by her alertness. Dario stared at her with a pair of dark eyes. Very well, his little wife has learned to resist. "Are you free tomorrow? Let's go have a big meal. As long as it's within $150, it's fine. The beef from last time was really quite good." Jade gritted her teeth. In the end, she decided to pay $150 to treat him to a meal. Although $150 was really a lot for her and was enough for her to eat for a month, she felt that the man in front of her was worth it. If it was someone else who had asked him for a $150 meal, he would have scorned it. But this was different because it was Jade who made the offer. Normally, she didn't dare to spend a single cent randomly. He tightened his gloomy gaze, and a trace of surprise flashed across his face. Then, he stared intently at her. "Are you sure?" Jade thought that he would be too high class for her offer and couldn't help shrinking his neck. She said with some embarrassment, "I've only made so much money. When I make more money in the future, I can treat you to delicious food." "Fool, that is half of your pay today. How could you waste it on a meal?" Dario suddenly looked at her with some heartache. "It's okay. I can earn more money, but it has to be within $150. I still need to save another $150 to buy things for my grandma." Before Jade could finish, Dario couldn't help hugging her tightly and kissing her deeply. The rest of the money was for her grandmother. In her heart, it seemed that his status was equal to her grandmother. He had successfully occupied half of her heart.